Good morning, Region 12. I said, good morning, Region 12. What a great day it is to see you. Region 12 in a few days, I hear it told, is going to become a schoolhouse again. That makes me excited. I'm so happy you're here. Excitement's in the air. As a former superintendent and high school principal, I just remember that my favorite time of year is when we realized that the students were coming back. Because then all of that planning and preparation and all the things that you do every day, and especially during the summer to get ready for the children, it's about to happen. And that's a great thing. Thank you for being here. This is our third annual Regional School Conference. We thank our friends here at Baylor University and Waco ISD for helping us make this happen every year. And thank you all for being here very much. Let me remind you something that's important, though. You may have met our friend BJ out in the parking lot, and he had one of those, yeah. BJ, come on, you're upstaging me, man. The orange cards, though, make sure you fill that out and get it in the box, because that will get you into a drawing for a Chromebook or a mini pad. We're happy to be giving away a number of those today, so thank you for doing that. And now we are very pleased to have the University High School Junior ROTC available to present our colors. At this time, please. The senior Army instructor for the Junior ROTC at University High School is Leonard Montalongo. The principal of that campus is Bill Shepard, and of course the superintendent of Waco ISD is Bonnie Kane. And now for the pledge to the American and Texas flag, I call on Mary Kate Yannick of West ISD. Mary Kate's principal is Dr. Jan Hungate. The superintendent of West ISD is Marty Crawford. Mary Kate, if you'll lead us, please.
The pledge to American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. And now for a moment of silence. Thank you and have a good school year.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Nice job. And now, if you'll remain standing for the national anthem. Snuck that one in on you, sorry about that. But now, presenting the national anthem, the Clifton High School Band. Thank you. Thank you, Clifton High School Band. Let's give them a hand, please. Those talented students are under the direction of Keith Zulke, Brian Bronstad, and Jeff White. Their principal is Sharon Bergman, and the superintendent of Clifton ISD is Rhoda White. Thank you all for making this possible for us. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce, and you may be seated at this time. Thank you. I promise no more tricks about that. We are very privileged to have a wonderful relationship with Baylor University, primarily and in part because of their president and chancellor, Judge Ken Starr, and I'll call on Judge Starr now to make comments from Baylor University. Thank you for being here, sir.
We'll see. Good morning. Would you please be standing? I'm just kidding. Relax and at ease. Are you excited about the new year? You know, there's an old song. It says, in the summertime when... you know the song. When all the well, you're too young to know that song. In the summertime, when all the trees and leaves are green and the redbirds sing, I'll be blue because the students aren't there. That's not really the words of the song, but you know, our campus, we do have summer sessions, but it's just my English teacher from Sam Houston High School is getting on the phone right now. She just celebrated, and she's proud of this, her 97th birthday. Roberta, are you there?
I'm here.
You have 5,000 educators gathered at the Farrell Center on the beautiful campus of Baylor University. And would you please join me in singing? Because I was late. Her birthday was Friday. Shame on me.
I don't need to have any more birthdays. I'm glad you forgot it. That means that I'm better shape than I would be if I hadn't taken that message.
Well, it's my fault. Now, you don't have to stand, but if you choose to, we're going to sing a belated happy birthday to Roberta, who was, and I'm going to say this, teachers shape destinies. This is one person who's told me that a kid from the east side of high school, of San Antonio at Sam Houston High School, could even go on to Washington, D.C., and who knows what might happen. Some real bad, but a lot that was real good. So, Roberta, we're going to sing. There are 5,000 educators from this wonderful region who are prepared to sing. Are you prepared to sing? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Roberta, dear Roberta. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Roberta, I'll talk to you later. She's got to go get her nails done.
Okay, that's fine.
Bye. Thank you. You all are good sports. You know, Henry Adams, the great American historian of the 19th century, wrote the most magnificent book that I've read on the process of education. It was really his autobiography, and he styled it The Education of Henry Adams. Yes, he was from the great Adams family. And he, not with the 2Ds on television. For those of you under the age of, well, say 70, Henry Adams wrote this, and I hope that this is something that if you don't have at your desk, especially those of you in the classroom, that you'll bear in mind. You can quickly find it. A teacher affects eternity. He used the single gender he. He or she can never tell where his or her influence stops. You know, I pay tribute to Roberta because she's still with us at the tender age of 97. But when I think back, as you think back, to the teachers who shaped your life and your career and probably helped create that spark within you, it probably was there to begin with, that I want to work with young people. I want to be an educator. President Abraham Lincoln: teach the children so that it will not be necessary to teach the adults. You know, Mr. Lincoln was an optimist, wasn't he? But he was onto something. We do need to teach the children. And then a man into whose orbit I came very late in his remarkable life, Jacques Barzun, came here from France as a young man and became one of the great cultural commentators of the 20th century, wrote magnificent books, was provost at Columbia University, and he lived out his last decade. He lived to be about 101, 102. And I got to meet him when he was in his 90s because he had given up New York City, where he'd grown up and got all three of his degrees at Columbia in Morningside Heights. But you know, his last home was in my hometown because he adopted Trinity University, which is very, very dear to me. And Jacques Barzun put it this way: in teaching, you cannot see the fruit of a day's work. It is invisible and remains so, maybe for 20 years. So when you think about that, you're working, whether you're an administrator, whether you're in the classroom, whether you do a little bit of both. This is the long view. It's a marathon, not the 9-month academic year. It is a marathon in terms of the process of your helping shape the lives and destinies of young people. So thank you. Know how much we at Baylor University, not just our School of Education, headed by our wonderful Dean, John Engelhardt, who works so closely with many of the superintendents here. And one of the theories, and well, it's a theory of the School of Education is get our future teachers into the classroom early, including in their freshman year in college. We do not want our future teachers to discover in their senior year, you know, I'm not so sure about my calling. You want that discernment to come earlier. So I bring greetings not only on behalf of the School of Education and our dear John Engelhardt, who has announced his retirement, but we hope to keep him here. He's from Arizona, so you never know. I tell him it's hot in Arizona. We want to keep John here, but we're so thankful that you're here. I hope that this day is, in fact, a day of great inspiration. Welcome to Baylor University, older than the state of Texas itself, chartered by the Republic of Texas in the same year that Texas entered the Union, February 1, 1845, and I'm very honored to say one of the founders was Robert Emmett Bledsoe Baylor, who served in the United States Congress, elected from his native state of Kentucky to the House of Representatives of that state. He served in the United States Congress with Davy Crockett. That's pretty important to me. In fact, they were roommates in Washington, D.C., but he got smart and left that beautiful country of Kentucky and gone to Texas, where he became a judge. God bless you. For those of you who in conscience can do it, join me. If you can't, we honor freedom of conscience at Baylor. If you can, I see some bear claws going up. Hey, sick 'em bears. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Judge Starr. Thank you, Baylor University. Sick 'em bears. Let's go. You know, the children of Central Texas are some of the most blessed children in the world, and they don't understand it yet. But many of you in their lives, every one of you in their lives, will touch them the way that that teacher Roberta did. Thank you so much for helping her celebrate her birthday. And Judge Starr, thank you so much for letting us be part of that. And thank you to the school staff and students for the music and the student participation this morning. Let's give them all just one more hand because they deserve it. How's that? But Waco and the Waco community, the Region 12 school community, is a special place, and just for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to take a moment to identify some folks because I want you to know this, that, behind every great effort like education in Central Texas, there's so many people that play a role that often we don't really know about. We do not know often how those dots connect necessarily. But especially here in Waco, it just has a special way of playing out. Because we have the Waco Education Alliance and the business and community and education folks who have gotten behind that effort and made special things happen for children. So I'm going to identify a few folks. When we get to the end, we'll give them a hand. But I just want you to know some of the people that work together with you. They're the people behind the scenes every day in the business community and in the community of Waco and McLennan County and Region 12 that make these sort of things work for us. Those include Dale Fisler, the city manager for Waco, Tony Herbert, the Waco City Council, Virginia Dupuis, executive director of the Greater Waco Education Alliance, MCC president, Dr. Johnette McCown, Syntax Hispanic Chamber board chair, Alfred Solano. Alfred, I know you're here this morning. There you go. Ken Hampton, the Senior Vice President for Community Development for the Waco Chamber. And Syntax African American Chamber President, Levada Brown. Levada, I know you're here this morning. In addition, we're pleased to have the leaders and staff from the city of Waco here this morning. Greater Waco Chamber, the Greater Waco Education Alliance, Prosper Waco, Heart of Texas Workforce, the Waco Business League, the Waco Tribune Herald is here today, United Way, TSTC, Baylor, MCC, Communities and Schools, Waco Community Development, McLennan County Pack of Hope, and a number of other agency directors, among those Mission Waco, Family Abuse Center, Avance, and Caritas. These groups, along with the area educators, are an example of the partnerships that occur in this area to align and lift people out of poverty. That's what we'll be talking about here today more than anything else, is when a child starts behind the learning curve because of having been placed in life in a position of poverty and the things that are absent from that life. What a role that you make and these people make and we all make in making sure that special things happen to move them forward. And that will be our main mission for today. And thank you for joining us. Thank you all for being here today. Let's give ourselves a hand as Education in Central Texas, please. Thank you to all. It is our pleasure at the Education Service Center, Region 12, to recognize a few of the outstanding educators in our region each year. And there are many, 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 and there are many applicants for these, and we only wish that we could choose them all, because everyone sitting in this auditorium today plays a great role in the life of children, or you wouldn't be sitting here. You're doing a great job out there. It is our pleasure to be able to recognize a few who, for a variety of reasons, have set themselves apart in a current year, and we are pleased to recognize those for you today. First, I'd like to call on our elementary teacher of the year from Clifton Park Elementary School in Killeen ISD, Tammy Thornhill. Tammy, come on up.
Good morning. I wasn't nervous until I walked in, and now the nerves kind of kicked in a little bit, so bear with me. It was 4 years ago, at 43 years old, that I was a college graduate and a first-year teacher. It's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and I am so blessed to be a part of this great region. But I know there's a lot of teachers out there that do a lot of great things every day, and I'm just humbled to be in your presence today as well. The other day I ran across a quote that said, "Being a new teacher is like trying to fly an airplane while trying to build it." And that's true. But I don't think it matters if you're a new teacher or a veteran teacher. I think that can apply for every new school year. That's the best part of our job, is that every year is a new opportunity, a new chance, and a new change. to affect the kids' lives that we have in our midst. And I thought about the correlations between a pilot and an airplane and a teacher in a classroom. And I thought about the fact that the pilot is the teacher and the passengers are the students, and that the air traffic control in the pilot's ears are your mentor teachers, your administration, and the people that you work with every day. But in this flight, I think that the one thing that's overlooked is that landing strip. And for us teachers, that can mean our faith, our family, and our friends. Because at the end of every day, when we are done with the day, that landing strip is what keeps us grounded. It's always in the same place, it's very steady, and it's very secure. So I think as teachers, it's important that we never lose sight of our landing strips in life. One more thing I thought about, when I get on an airplane, I buckle in, I'm all excited, but I never wonder for one moment how many hours that pilot has flown, how many trips that pilot has taken. I only wonder, does he know that to someone, I'm the most important person in their world? And on that first day of school, when those students sit down in your classroom in their new clothes and their shiny new backpacks, and they're so anxious and ready to go, they won't care how long you've taught, they won't care how many subjects you've taught, they will only care, do you know that to someone that they are their whole world? I wish you much luck this school year. To our wonderful Region 12, to your districts, to your classrooms, to your students, and to yourself. May God bless the 2014-2015 school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tammy, and now I'd like to introduce to you our secondary teacher of the year this year from Lake Belton Middle School in Belton ISD, Denise Gilbert. Come forward, Denise. Congratulations.
Good morning. Speaking to a room of 5,000 educators is very intimidating. I am not going to picture you in your underwear, as some people say. I am going to picture you as 8th graders, so please feel free to assume this position or this position, because I'm very comfortable with both of those. Being a public educator comes with a lot of pressures and a lot of stress, from the STAR test to EOCs, SATs, satisfactory, advanced, level 1, level 2, special ed, RTI, lesson plans, calling parents. The pressure seems like it just goes on and on and on. And so this year, I want to ask you to look beyond those pressures to the heart of why you became an educator in the first place. And we are all here because we love kids. So this year, when your students walk through your door, get to know them and let them get to know you. Find out why that shy kid in the corner prefers to sit in the corner. And find that kid who needs an extra hug or a pat on the back from his teacher because he's not getting that at home. And the kid who constantly pushes your buttons day after day, talk to that kid. Let him know that you are there for him, and find out where that aggression or that anger is coming from. Let your classroom be the classroom that the kids want to come into. Because when they come into your classroom, they know that they are loved, that they are valued, and that they are necessary in this world. So this year, enjoy every moment that you have to get to know these kids and to give them the confidence and the inspiration they need to have the best future possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Congratulations. And now our counselor of the year From Marlin ISD, Marlin High School, Amy Brown. Amy.
You know, you get a lot of advice when you're speaking to this large of a group, but I have to say the funniest advice I got was from my 17-year-old son who says, "Mom, just please don't use any cliches. It's so cliche to do that." But I have to tell you, I'm very honored and very blessed to be before you this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and welcome you to the new year. And in many ways, today is like January 1st for the rest of the world. A fresh start, a time for reflection, and looking forward to the new year. It's a time for setting priorities, making resolutions, and setting goals. Time to refocus. And luckily for you, I'm a counselor, so I can guide you through this process. As you are going through training and setting up your classroom or office this week, ask yourself why you are an educator. Whether you're brand new, or you've been in it for a few years, or even 55 like our own Mrs. Milton, ask yourself, am I effective, or have I become complacent? Do I really know my students? Have I built relationships with them? How about their parents? I mean, I know they're from terrible poverty situations. They have bad behavior, they don't respect authority, they just care about themselves and social media. They're so spoiled and they don't understand the value of education. Can I really make a difference for these kids? If you don't think so, I challenge you to read about the butterfly effect, or about the boy who went along the beach throwing the starfish back into the ocean, or even about how 80% of the 2014 Marlin High School graduating class was accepted into an institution of higher education. With 2 of those from this year's graduating class committing to serve our country with military service, 2 of them playing college ball this fall, and collectively that class of 2014 being awarded $490,900 in scholarship money. Especially schools like Marlin who have struggled. But really every district in Texas has many things to which TEA expects you to comply. But that's not enough. It is our responsibility as educators to make sure our students are college ready. And we must commit to do that no matter what. No matter what age or grade of students you work with, that is your responsibility. I know that it's easy to get worn out in education, but I want to remind you that being an educator is not just a job, it's a calling. It's a heart thing. You hurt when your kids aren't successful and celebrate with them when they are successful because you care. You care that they learn, you care that they are college ready, and especially for over 59% of the students in our Region 12 who come from poverty situations, because education is one of the main keys to help them get out of poverty and be successful. You have choices every day, and you must teach our students that they also have choices and that they do have a future. I challenge you this year to commit, not be complacent, not be just compliant. Secretaries, custodians, teachers, aides, support staff in every way, counselors, special staff, and you administrators, listen up. You affect the lives of our students every day with every interaction you have. Positively or negatively, it's your choice. And you are in control. And since your session with this counselor is about to end, you probably expect me to ask, so how do you feel about this upcoming school year? Well, hopefully you'll be like our own Mrs. Green and say, honey, I feel good. Well, I want to remind you that you must take care of yourself this school year so that you can take care of those students. Be positive and compassionate, pray, and take every advantage of every teachable moment that you have. Do your paperwork and do everything that your principal and the TEA and everybody else asks of you, But please don't just be compliant. Be committed. Use your resources, use your tools, and supportive administrators and parents to make this year a great year to be an educator. Thank you.
And we're pleased each year to recognize our superintendents in the region. Their leadership means so much to all of us. And we're happy to introduce to you this year our Superintendent of the Year from Hillsborough ISD, Dr. Buck Gilcrease. Buck.
Man, what a privilege it is to follow Teachers and Counselor of the Year, because honestly, folks, they remind us of what we do, the purpose of what we do, and that is teaching and learning. And regardless of what some people about 90 miles south on the road down there in a pink building think, it's not about anything other than what you do in that classroom every day, and that's teaching and learning. And I want you to know I appreciate what you do every day for the kids in your community and the impact that you have on them. Henry Ford once said, if I'd asked the people what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. And you know, there's some truth to that, because if you ask the kids who come into your classroom this year what they want, they're going to want more of the same. And so I'm going to challenge you this year to show them what they don't even know that they want, and all the things that you're going to lead and teach them to. And I just know that what's going to happen and what happens in classrooms all across this region and this state is pure magic. And I want you to know how much I appreciate what goes on in that classroom every day. I want you to have a great year, and to quote the great Charles Dickens, God bless us, everyone.
You know, and like happens with great events and the work that we do, it never happens single-handedly. Region 12, the Education Service Center, we're so happy to be in a position to make events like this possible for you, but our corporate partners make all the difference in the world. And with all of the new opportunities that we have with college and career readiness, it became apparent to us a few years ago that we needed a corporate partner to help us get those services out to you in the best and most meaningful way that we can. And we have that done internally, but we just felt like the folks at Kaplan were the people who were building the kind of model that we were looking for. So immediately we became friends with Seppi Basili. Seppi is the Vice President for K-12 Learning at Kaplan, and we worked over the last couple of years with he and his staff to try to make some extra and special things available to you. So I'm going to call on Seppi at this moment. Seppi Basili, Kaplan. Thank you, Seppi.
Thank you so much. And again, as I said to Jerry, I'm not from Texas, but everything really is bigger in Texas. It's so, so true. Again, I want to thank Region 12 for partnering with us. You know, at Kaplan and Region 12, we share a mission. We believe that the economic success of our students as they move on from school is to be able to be college ready or career ready. And it's our hope and our partnership to bring the kinds of college readiness programs, to bring the kind of skill programs to help for the workforce, and all of the academic supports to your schools and students so that they can do their best. It's an imperative. So again, thank you so much for your hard work, and you're going to have a terrific year. Thank you again.
Again, it is our pleasure to make these kinds of things available to you. Just wanted you to have a chance to meet some of the folks behind the scenes who do the work for us, and Seppi and the fine folks, Ted Robinson, Lee Hurst, and staff at Kaplan, they do make it happen for us every day. They work with Chris Holacek, you know Chris, and we'll be in touch on the variety of options that they have available for you. You know, I've said before, I said earlier that the children of Central Texas are so very blessed to have you in their classrooms, simply because they are. You make a difference in their lives every day. And we hope to help you bring perspective to that. And one of the major overlays that you know and I know and we know in education that drives either achievement or lack of achievement often has to do with poverty. What is available to those children, especially in their early childhood years. So we've asked Dr. Donna Beagle to come speak today. She's a national speaker, an author, discussion leader, a trainer. I have heard her speak before. I'm inspired by her message, her life, and how she translated that into the education of children in ways that are so very, very meaningful. With nearly 60% of our students being economically disadvantaged, and much higher than that in some schools, understanding the framework for poverty and how children can and do rise above that. You do this for these children every day. So I hope what you'll hear today will be an affirming as well as an inspiring speech and a presentation. But listen close to her personal story, growing up in generational poverty, but at the same time listening for those strategies and the ways that we can incorporate that into the learning that we do in every classroom in the Region 12 area. You make a difference, and you make a big difference for those children that are trying to rise out of poverty. To help us have a better perspective on that, a wonderful educator in her own right, a person who has lived what she says, I introduce to you now Dr. Donna Beagle. Let's give her a hand.
Good morning. I couldn't be more excited to be in this room. The energy is phenomenal. But I really do need to know who's here. Will you stand up if you're good with teenagers? Is there anyone in the room good with teenagers? Please stand up if you're good with teenagers. Stand up if you're good with teenagers. Where are the folks good with teenagers? Those of you sitting down, take a look around because you might need some help with teenagers. That is a skill, that is an asset. Thank you very much. We have so many skills and assets in our schools, in our communities that we are not tapping into. I need to see those of you in the room, if you are good with computers, would you please stand up? Got any computer talent whatsoever, please stand up. Thank you very much. And might I assume that those of you sitting down are not as privileged as me to live with a senior design engineer and could use a little help with computers. Untapped resources, untapped talents in this room. Will you stand up if you're a good cook? Do we have any good cooks in the room? Come on, up with it. That is a skill, that is a talent. Thank you very much. Now, I have a question for you. If I had a student who was interested in cooking as a profession, would it be okay if I gave him your contact information and let him talk to you just for 10 or 15 minutes about ideas they might take that career? Would that be okay? Thank you so much. That is an untapped resource. You bring to your work more than the role that you're labeled. How about anybody in here good at throwing parties? Anybody good at throwing parties? Please stand up. You're good at throwing the party. Come on, get up. You're a good party thrower. We have event planners in the house. Event planners in the house. I am so privileged to do the work that I get to do. I tell people I know too much to be quiet. There is so much untapped potential, not only in you, but in our students and the families who live in the war zone of poverty. How many of you know that? I love the study that came out that showed people in poverty are more likely to give. People in poverty are more likely to stop and help you. They're more likely to invite you in. There's so many wonderful strengths that we can build on. But what often happens with our students who live in the war zone of poverty is we confuse them with the poverty. So we see the students as the problem. I want to help you separate the students from the poverty. Let's fight the poverty, not the people who live in it. Every single day you get that chance. I was born into a family where no one went past the 8th grade. Most of my family members cannot read and write. How many of you serve families that cannot read and write? I was on a plane not too long ago, and a man said to me, "There are no illiterate people in America." I tried to get him to come to my house for a karaoke party so he could meet a few. 44 million, that's just what we count. But think about it. In our systems, how do we communicate with people who can't read and write? Isn't it usually with newsletters and forms to fill out? So are we really communicating? And can we step back in our everyday work and say, what else might we do to get these messages to our students and families who live in the crisis of poverty? What else might we do? I dropped out of school when I was 15, and my teacher said to me, "Don't quit school because one day you're going to want a job." Who here thinks that's a meaningful motivator? My master's degree is communication, and one of the things I teach is that meanings are in people, rooted in their lived experience. So what is the meaning of a job to an educator? It's probably not a job, it's a career, right? Probably have food in your fridge, not overpaid. I would change that if I were ruler of all. Probably have health insurance, transportation needs met. Maybe could have a vacation. And you get societal honor, don't you? How many of you have ever been at a party where someone says, "What do you do?" And you say, "Oh, I'm an educator," and they're like, "Oh." We give you that. And Max Weber says everyone needs that. Everyone needs that. So the teacher, with the best of intentions, is trying to motivate me. Stay in school so you can have this. But what is this to me? I was born into a cotton picking family. I was born into generational migrant labor poverty. So my family would leave Arizona, where I was born, and travel to California, to Oregon, and to Washington doing migrant labor work. We would work that morning, be able to buy lunch, and then work that afternoon, get dinner, and get back to the field again. In my whole life, I never saw anyone earn enough money to pay both the rent and the utilities. Everybody worked hard. How many of you know the majority of our families living in the war zone of poverty are working? How many of you know people working more than one job who can't afford rent? HUD did a housing affordability study, and they found not one town, rural or urban, in America where a person earning minimum wage can afford a modest two-bedroom apartment. Not one single town. The census tells us that the majority of people, 2/3, are working more than one job. We have families doubled up, tripled up, living in cars, living in campers. And the latest epidemic in our country is living in storage sheds. Are we ready for them? Because they're coming. They're coming into your classrooms. They're coming into our school buildings. Are we ready for them? Not are they ready for us. All through school, I didn't know the words my teachers would use. I would go ask my teacher, I would say, what does this word mean? And my teachers would say, with the very best of intentions, you need to go look it up in the dictionary and be a responsible, independent learner. So I would go to the dictionary and I would find 4 or 5 more words I don't know. And no one in my environment knows those words. There's no one to ask. I always felt like there's this hidden code that nobody would just let me in. Anybody who knew the code would send me to read more, and my people didn't write the dictionary. And it wasn't only the words I didn't know the subject matter. So teachers would introduce the subject, and then they would use the middle-class lived experience to explain it. And when I didn't understand, it was often explained again using the exact same middle-class life experience, a little louder. You have students coming into your classrooms who have no one that they identify with who's benefited from education. They have no one who they identify with who uses education to earn a living. Most kids that I talk to around this country, I've worked in 48 states. Most of the kids I talk to, I say things to them like, "How come you're in school?" And I hear things like, "Stupid law." They don't even know why they're there. We are segregated in America, and I'm talking by class. Who do middle-class people spend time with? So if you are in generational poverty, working class poverty, immigrant poverty, who are you spending your time with? Other people who are out of salt and butter. Other people who don't know those words either. There's no one to ask, how do you do this 7th grade math? Because no one can help you. The only learning that's going to happen for those kids will happen in your building, where there's lights, air conditioning, or heat. And adults who are not in crisis. Adults who understand how to do those things. I was mentoring an 8th grader. I started mentoring her when she was 5. She was an 8th grade, and her math teacher said she was failing, and so I long distance mentoring her because she's generational poverty like my family, highly mobile, constantly moving. So I'm talking to her teacher in California. I'm in Oregon. And I said, "Can you help me understand what's going on? Alicia's really bright." And he said, "Well, she won't do her homework." What do you call homework when you don't have a home? Literally, this is my 24th year of doing this work, and I have asked thousands and thousands of superintendents, principals, teachers, is homework an effective teaching and learning strategy for students who live in the crisis of poverty? I have never had one educator say it works. Most people say it doesn't. Not only does it not work, it spirals kids farther behind. These are the sacred cows that we must put on the table and say, what else might we do to achieve our objectives to educate these kids? Because the present situation in our communities is a child born into poverty is less likely to get an education today than they were in the 1940s. We've not improved. Poverty is the one barrier we've made no progress on. Herbert Gahn says we keep asking people in crisis to change. They're not in a context to change. When my teacher said to me at 15, "Stay in school so you can get a job," I said, "I don't want a job." How does the middle class person respond to that? We start value judging from the middle class point of view. Well, why wouldn't you want a job? What's the meaning of a job to me? People work hard. They don't get treated with respect. They still get evicted. They don't move up. So no, thank you. I don't want a job. Now, if that teacher knew me, and this is something I really encourage, is get to know your students beyond their academic scores, beyond their attendance, beyond test scores. You have to know non-academic things about kids to motivate them. If that teacher knew me, she would have known that my dream in life was to be a mom. I thought that's why I was put on the planet. And she might have said something like, "You want to be a mom, Donna?" "Yeah." "Well, what if one day you have a child and they need your help? Don't you want to be able to help your child? You need to stay in school so you can help your child." Do you see what a different level of communication that is? So I want you to practice this concept by a scholar named Kenneth Burke called identification. Kenneth Burke says, when you identify with someone, you see how you're like them and they see how they're like you. And that's where we got to get to. A lot of research out there that says you got to have relationships with kids in order to educate them. And I say, if that relationship is not based on identification, it's not going to work. So please turn to your neighbor and tell them something they don't know about you. Go ahead. All right, I'd like to ask you to pause your conversation. Please pause your conversation. What you just did is called level 2 of self-disclosure. Most helping professionals that work with people in poverty stay at level 1. Level 1 is sharing information. So I teach science, I tell you the subject, you leave me, what do you know about me? I'm a role. I'm a role, and that role is going to represent everybody else who's played in that role in that family. So my brother Wayne spent 12 years in prison. I spent about that much time in college. I went from GED to doctorate in 10 years. Thank you. And our family members, it didn't matter, grandma, aunts, uncles, didn't matter, were they talking to Wayne or were they talking to me? They would say, "When are you getting out?" And a lot of my middle-class friends would look in at that communication and say, "They're trying to pull you down." I'm like, no, they have no idea why I'm going to a place where I don't look right, I don't talk right, where I don't even know what to do. I don't know the words. Where I'm made fun of for my hair, for my clothes, where I'm ridiculed, where I'm beat up. Why would you go there? And they don't even know what you do with it if you did go there. I was mentoring a kid who showed up at my door. She was 15 and knocked on my door. She was wearing Gothic wear. You've seen that look? She had so much makeup on you couldn't see her face. Black lips. She had spikes around her neck and spikes on her boots, all black. And she knocks on my door. I open the door. I was like, ah! And she says, "Can I use your phone? I need you to use your phone." She uses my phone. Long story short, she ends up moving in with me. I was raised, if you got a place to sleep, someone ought to be using it. There's a lot of great strengths we can pick up on. So she moves in with me, and a couple months into that, she brings home her IEP. And I looked at it, and I said, "Oh, this is not going to work." And she's like, What? I said, "There's no expectations for you on here. You're just basically asked to show up." And she said, "They're not doing you a favor." And she said, "Oh, you see, Donna, they have to keep it easy for me because I have these problems with my brain. And this is all I can do." I said, no. I've seen you do more in the last 2 months of you living here than you're doing here. No, I'm going to talk to that principal. We're on it. We're getting on it. No, Donna, it's got to be easy for me. I have these problems with my brain. I tried 15 minutes to convince her she didn't have problems with her brain. And finally, I had to pull out the big guns. I said, Mindy, I'm a doctor. She has no clue what kind of doctor I am. I said, you get it? I'm a doctor. I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with your brain. You want to know what's wrong with you? You've had a hard life. Everything that could happen to a female has happened to her. Father died when she was 2. She's been on the streets pretty much ever since. She's been raped. She's been beaten. That's your only problem. Your brain's fine. Now let's get you going. We switched her school, and I matched her to a mentor who was the vice principal who had a similar life to her. And when she started struggling, that mentor was there. And she graduated, and interestingly, somewhere along the line, all the Gothic wear fell off. And she's wearing a white dress for prom. And I told her, you will not be in my present without signing up for college. You will not. So I'm in leave. I'll be back. You better have the papers. Better do it. So my husband calls me up. He says, yeah, Mindy came downstairs, and she said, will you help me with these financial aid papers? I don't get it. And he said, I was going to help her with it, but they were in Spanish. She was so intimidated, she grabbed the wrong form. So he said I helped her fill them out, and we got them all filled out, and down at the bottom it said she needed a $25 application fee for the college. And she said, I can't go. And he said, no, I'll get you a check. And I'm like, Chuck, you could have got a waiver. See, if you're going to work with kids in poverty, you got to know how to maneuver systems. He said, I handed it to her. I said, okay, all you got to do now is mail it. And she said, I can't go. I don't have a stamp. That will stop a kid from generational poverty. I was speaking in Michigan to 5,000 folks, and the governor spoke before me and said poverty 9 times. I was ecstatic. Because if we're not, I go into schools that are Title I schools, and I sit in their staff meetings, and poverty's not even on the agenda. We have to say the P word. We can't keep pretending that all of our students come in our doors with the same experience and meet them where they are. Who picked up on what my mom was most proud of? Her kids, right? My parents never, ever went to a school conference. What do we say about those parents? Whose perspective is that? It is a middle-class lived experience looking in perspective. And how do we get there? We say things like, well, you know, if my kid had a school conference, I would be there. And that means that I care and love my kids. So if you don't do what, the logic falls apart when you really look at it through different lived experiences. My mom would say, I ain't going in there and make a fool out of myself. Those people, they want to talk about school. Don't know anything about school. What's the point of me going in there? I wish one educator had said to my mom, tell me about Larry. What's he like? What does Donna like to do? What's Rick interested in? When Steve gets off track, how do you help him get back on? We get to use our parents in generational poverty for what they're experts on, and that's their kids. You can find out what they care about, then you've got motivators. You know, when I'm looking for motivators for kids in poverty, I say things like, how'd you like to buy your mom a house? How'd you like to never, ever see your grandma do without her medicine again? All right, I'm going to tell you 2 ways you're going to be able to do that. Get educated, get a skill. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you to work hard and you'll make it. Because these kids have seen people work hard their whole lives and not make it. And the labor statistics are clear. People who have high school diploma or less don't move up in the American labor market. They don't move up. On average, if someone takes a job with a high school diploma or less, you go visit them 10 years later, you find them earning $2 more an hour. Doesn't matter how hard they work. Who works harder, the person cleaning the hotel room or the person in their office? Migrant labor workers, person in their queue. It's not about hard work. People are working in this country and they're not making it. So what does poverty teach? You learn nobody cares. And I learned that from my lived experience. I remember being a 7th grader at a really high poverty school, and that's all I ever went to, was schools that were, everybody's in crisis. And I told the teacher, I don't want to go outside, they fight out there. And she said, I have work to do, you need to go outside. So I went outside and I was beat up. Handfuls of my hair falling out of my head. No one cares. I used to watch my mom and dad go into a helping organization, and there'd be plastic or glass between them and the people. Guys, you have bad parents? Why don't you talk to them face to face and like get to know our names? We are segregated in America. So I grew up believing that no one cared. I developed the attitude. Who works with students with attitude? Poverty teaches you that. How about students with smart mouth? I was queen of that one. Poverty teaches you that too. The problem comes in is when you take it personally, right? So a lot of kids are kicked out of class because the teacher takes it personally. I'm here to testify to you, it's not about you. Unless you're being mean. It's about these kids living in crisis, not having their fundamental needs met. So if you can stay centered, in why you go to work every day, I go to work every day to leave kids in a better place, you won't take it personally. You'll be like able to step back and go, what would get a kid to say that? What would get a kid to do that? I was working with a high school doing a poverty competency assessment. How many of you have heard of cultural competency? I do poverty competency assessments, which examines policy, professional development levels of teachers, staff, to really understand the poverty competencies. I'm working with this school and I see this kid kicking a desk and teachers with him and they're yelling, and I just walked over to him and I said, what's going on? He says, stupid assignment. I said, what's stupid about it? Stupid resume. I said, oh, you are so in luck because I will help you. I'm really good at resumes. He said, you can't help me. I said, no, you don't understand. I dropped out of school at 15. I got my GED at 26, and I studied poverty all the way to the doctorate. I got really good at filling out resumes. He said, you can't help me. I said, show me where you're hung up. He points to the blank paper he's supposed to be filling out, to the reference section. And he says, don't know someone with the phone. How many times do we give assignments that students have no capacity to fill? No money to buy paper and poster board and glue and scissors. We have to examine if we're setting our students in crisis up for success. For many of our students, the only learning that will happen will be with you. How will we make that learning happen? They're not in a context that allows for it. Poverty teaches you that everyone else is smarter than you. Because you walk in the classroom and you don't know the words they're using. Our children in poverty start school with a much more limited vocabulary. Much more limited. So the words that we're using, they may not even know what they are. Often I will ask kids, when I see feedback on their papers, what'd your teacher write? And they don't know. My teachers wrote things like fragment, run on. I never knew what that meant. I was 28 years old before I had a professor who sat me down and showed me what a fragment was. But you can't just know this stuff. Someone has to step up and go above and beyond to help you get it. Paulo Freire, who wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed, one of my Bibles, he says, in the United States, you don't teach about poverty. You graduate people from college without Poverty 101. So they go on to be teachers, doctors, psychiatrists, judges. How many of you have had the course History of Poverty, United States of America? You can go ahead and look around. Because it doesn't matter if I'm speaking to judges or lawyers. I was Speaker of the Year for the New Mexico Bar Foundation, which I'm very proud of that, because I don't know if you know this, but the United States is now putting more youth in cages than any other country. And we cage more adults than any other country. It's almost a direct pipeline if we don't catch them in our schools. How many of you know that? I was working in a small town in Texas, and I said, what do people do for a living here? We got 3 prisons. How many of you think we can do better? How many of you think we better do better? I mean, we have 1 in 32 now. And the scholars are saying if we continue on this track, it won't be long before you will have half of us going to work and in some way working to cage the other half. Who here's been in prison? I mean visiting. Oh my God. Wow. Do you feel that? Now, if you've ever been to a prison, you hear poverty, poverty, poverty. We're not caging the privileged. I know Martha Stewart went for a little while. It's poverty. And we have cities around the country that are basing how many jail beds they need in 20 years on whether a 3rd grader can read. Where are the 3rd grade teachers in the room? Are you okay with someone coming in and if your 3rd grader can't read saying, I'll build them a bed in 20 years? We cannot be okay with this. You know, NASA says we send people to space, failure is not an option. How can it be in our schools and in our communities? So what happens in this country is we don't educate people about poverty. When I got to the University of Portland at age 28, and University of Portland's a very privileged school, and I know people there thought I was weird. I showed up on that campus with a really bad perm from my cousin Wanda, about 40 pounds overweight. You know, a lot of people, how many of you heard the media rhetoric? You gotta cut food stamps, you gotta cut food stamps. We don't know. People don't know that if you're on food stamps today, you get $1.43 per meal. What are you gonna buy? Raise your hand if you buy healthy food. Raise your hand if you would testify it's expensive. You know, we're gonna buy the carbs, we're gonna buy the starches, we're gonna buy the quick, the easy, the fast. We're in crises. So I showed up saying ain't every other word, driving this big car that had been donated to the welfare office and the welfare worker gave to me. And it literally was like the size of this stage. But I was so happy because I had been taking buses to get my kids to school and buses to get to the college. And so it was a blessing. So I showed up on that campus and I started being around people who weren't in crisis for the first time ever. And I saw them do very caring behaviors. They were volunteering at soup kitchens. They were donating time, money. And I was puzzled. I'm like, what? I thought people didn't care. Looks like they care. And then I realized they did care. So I started talking to people, well, if you care, why are we allowing people to live like this? And it wasn't long before I was totally clear. In spite of their caring, they had no clue. They could no more describe my life in generational poverty than I could describe middle-class world. My mom would say, napkin on the lap, who the hell has a napkin? When I first went to my second husband, Chuck's home, his family grew up, his dad's a plumber, but he owns the plumbing company, so it's a different social class. I want you all to pretend you're middle class, no matter what your background is. I want you to pretend you're middle class, and it's Thanksgiving, and you've invited someone to dinner, and they show up with 5 extra people. What might your face look like? That's kind of what my future mother-in-law looked like. But I don't know what I've done wrong. I can feel something's wrong, but I don't know what. And she's starting to feel that I'm getting uncomfortable, and she says, I just didn't know you were bringing extra guests, Donna. And I'm thinking, I didn't know I had to ask. You know, people don't have a place to go, you bring them. I had a teacher say to me the other day, but Dr. Beagle, how do you teach these kids to stop sharing? And she said, no, we'll make it work, Donna. I just don't know if we have enough plates. So you wash some. Some people eat, next people get theirs, they wash them, and I don't know what's wrong. And she says, but where will they sleep? On the floor. What about bedding? Got any coats? You see the classes? You think this is happening in our classrooms? You know, I can get to the front of any line, and I don't even know how I get there. Because brain research says your subconscious mind responds before your conscious mind. So by the time, if I'm in a room full of folks who have never been hungry, by the time they realize there's food in the room, I can load 3 plates. I am programmed. I can't sleep on the plane, because you know who's going to come down the aisle. My tray's down, eyes are open. Don't pass me. I am programmed. Get in there, get it. You don't know when more's coming. And take too much, because everybody you know needs some. I believed that I wasn't smart. I internalized the poverty, as Paulo Freire describes, as a personal deficiency. I thought people who had nice hair, that was an innate talent. I couldn't figure it out. Why can't I make my hair look like the people who are making it? Of course, I know now. It's my cousin Wanda. And the powder at the gas stations, you know that pink or white powder they used to use? I had that for shampoo. These were messages I received in generational poverty. And what I learned was people did not even have a clear definition of poverty. The federal government defines poverty as about $23,000 a year for a family of 4. Raise your hand if you're a family of 4 that could make it on $23,000 a year. If that number seems low, it should, because it's based on 1960s cost of living. Didn't include childcare, transportation, or health care, 3 major family expenses. Current figures show that actually, if you were to calculate what a family needs in 2014, it's closer to $48,000 a year, and that wouldn't allow any trips to Hawaii. So you have a lot of students who don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, but should, because of the faulty federal poverty guideline. You have a lot of kids who can't get into Head Start, and that's the only place they'll ever get preschool. So the federal government doesn't have a clear definition of poverty. And then I started talking to people, and I realized, wow, poverty means something different to everybody you talk to. In my doctoral research, I interviewed people who grew up in generational poverty who achieved a bachelor's degree. And I had one guy call me up. He said, I'll do your study for you. I grew up poor. I said, thank you so much. So tell me, how did your family get by? He said, well, my father was a physician. It's the actual quote. He said, he died when I was 12, and I had to go live with my grandparents. I worked in their store, and I pulled myself up and became a doctor. And I'm listening to him from generational poverty, lived experience. My brothers and I used to fight over who got the back window of the car. When cars had back windows, that was the best place to sleep, because you could see the stars and have no feet in your face. And I'm thinking, you knew someone who owned a store? And you're related to them? That's not poverty. But if you look at it from his lived experience, who do the children of professionals hang out with? Other children of professionals who are not going to live with grandma, not working in a store. So in his eyes, he grew up poor. So how's he going to treat somebody from generational poverty? Probably like this. Hey, I did it. Why can't... So the more I learned, the more I realized it wasn't that people didn't care, and that was huge to me. Mother Teresa says to believe your fellow human beings do not care about you is more painful than hunger, and I fully agree with her. There are so many stereotypes and so many myths out there about poverty and our children and families who live in it. We don't have an understanding of the difference between generational poverty, working class poverty, immigrant poverty, situational poverty. So when we don't understand, what do human beings do? We judge. Portland State University has a brand new School of Social Work building, and it was named in my honor, which is a little bit surreal. I went there for the ribbon cutting, and this professor said, I've been teaching in the Donna Beagle Community Center, and I thought you were dead. I am proud they lifted the School of Social Work out of the basement where it's been for 30 years, and now the donor said it's going to be the penthouse for students who are going to have their feet working on the ground. And they let my cousin Wanda, who isn't good at hair, but fabulous graphic designer. She's my graphic designer, so my website, my books, all my materials is Wanda. They let her take quotes from my book, See Poverty, and she decorated the interior. So when you walk in, it says, believe people can make it out of poverty. If you don't, they probably won't. Think about that. I was working, doing a 2-day teacher in-service on a Native American reservation. And at the very first break, a teacher came to me and said, you know, Dr. Beagle, it really doesn't matter what teaching and learning styles you use with Native American kids. They're our permanent poor. They can't learn. I was like, stay away from the children. You could be a florist. If your teacher believes you can't learn because of your race or ethnicity, what are your chances? And the same is true of poverty. I've had people say, should we lower our expectations for kids in poverty? No, they're too low. Expect every one of them to get a doctorate and then begin building their capacity to do so. Meet them where they are, not where we want them to be. I love Carol Dweck's work. She talks about teachers who believe that students' IQ is fixed struggle with kids in poverty. But the ones who believe that what they know when they get them isn't all they can know have high success. What they know when they walk through your doors is only what they've been exposed to in a relevant, meaningful way. Part of the way I was able to make it through the community college, because when I got to the community college, I entered a world of words I'd never heard before. Subject matter that I didn't know and had no one to ask except my brother Wayne, who spent his 12 years in prison reading. So I would write Wayne letters. Wayne, we're studying this. I got a test in 3 weeks. Find out everything you can. He'd write me back letters, sometimes 25 pages. He'd say, Donna, remember we lived in that berry cabin? We were doing this and that and the other. That's kind of what they're talking about here. He used familiar vocabulary. He used examples from my childhood. You know, if you're an educator, you know that if the knowledge isn't made relevant to your students, they can't grab it. And we do a good job of making the knowledge relevant to our students in privilege. We have to be able to make it relevant to the kids in crisis. So I was acing my tests. I couldn't read my textbooks, but I'm acing my tests. I have a really high GPA. But it wasn't until I got to University of Portland and I met Dr. Fulford, who ended up being one of my significant mentors. He said to me, I want to help you learn a second language. And I was like, what? He said, Donna, when middle-class people speak, they use a very specific sentence structure. They use vocabulary from their environment where they've had adults who communicate with them using that vocabulary and give them context for it. They talk about experiences that are in the middle-class world. You can't know those if you've not been exposed to them. So he began helping me to learn a second language. And I am now bilingual. I speak fluent middle-class language. And it's a very different style. I do a whole series of training around communicating more effectively across social class barriers. Because I not only had to learn the vocabulary, the sentence structure, I had to learn how close do you stand, who do you tell what to, when do you interrupt. I had to learn a whole new language. And what's interesting, and Dr. Fulford had studied language and social class for 30 years. He's the founder of the communication department at University of Portland. He said, Donna, when you're tired, your grammar will revert. And it does. It is another language. It is an environment where you don't know what to do, and expectations are not spoken. We don't tell people what we expect. One of my first trainings was with the largest law firm in the Northwest. And I was so happy they let me in the building, because my family, we couldn't get bathroom keys. This was 24 years ago when I did one of my first trainings. I'm in this beautiful building, and I can't believe they let me in there. And then somebody came by and said, oh, we're going to have food, too. We have a buffet lunch. And I'm like, food, too? These attorneys are going to listen to me who said ain't every other word. They're paying me, and we're going to get to eat, too? So I get my food. I'm eating. I'm all happy. And then I realize I'm the only person eating. And I don't know why. And I'm looking around the room. You've ever had this experience where you've been in a context where you don't know why people are doing what they're doing? Like, have you been to a Rotary meeting? You ever been to a Rotary meeting? They have all these rituals they do. So I finally leaned over and asked this attorney, how come people aren't eating their food? And she said, oh, we wait till everyone gets a plate before we eat. In my mind, I'm just screaming, who told you that? Could you share it with the class? I'm not stupid. I can get this stuff. But someone needs to state the obvious. Humans can't know what we're not exposed to in a relevant, meaningful way. I am a fluke. You don't usually hear the voices of people from generational poverty. And sometimes it's because we can't hear them. I said ain't every other word. Because don't we equate IQ with the way people talk? We have an epidemic of children in poverty being placed in special education around this country. And much of the measures that's used to indicate where they need to be is, do they know middle class stuff? Do they know middle class vocabulary? Do they know middle class sentence structure? Do they know middle class behavior? What they know when you get them isn't all they can know. It's just what they've been exposed to. My marriage ended, and that's me in my wedding dress up there at 15. Would anyone be surprised if I told you I married a guy from generational migrant labor poverty? I used to wonder, how'd I do it? The whole world out there, and I found Jerry. His family lived exactly like we do. His parents couldn't read and write. They were migrant labor workers, and we began our life exactly as we had grown up. Had our honeymoon in a cherry field in Wenatchee, Washington. I've had 8 pregnancies, and I have 3 living children. Infant mortality rates for women in poverty are equal to Malaysia. Our hunger rates for children under 5 are equal to Romania. The poverty is right here. And I know people who lock up food from our kids. How many of you know about brain research and nutrition? The studies show if you give children water while they're testing, on average, they increase 2 points. Imagine if we feed them. We can do better, but not in ignorance. Not in ignorance, operating on stereotypes. How many of you have ever taken a Christmas basket or a Thanksgiving basket to a family in poverty? And you get there and, man, they got a big screen TV. They're watching cable, wearing Nike, smoking cigarettes, talking on a cell phone with painted nails. Anybody? We don't understand that, do we? And what do humans do when we don't understand? We judge. If you're judging, you cannot connect. If you cannot connect, you cannot communicate. If you cannot communicate, how can you educate? So how do we suspend judgment? We get more information. What's really going on there? What's really going on there? Oprah Winfrey doesn't understand this either. She said on her show, "I'd rather help children in Africa than children in America." She interviewed kids in Africa and she said, "What do you want?" And the kids in Africa said, "I want a uniform to go to school." She interviewed kids in America and said, "What do you want?" And the kids said, iPhone, Xbox. You don't have to watch the show because we all live in the same social context where we're programmed and socialized. In order to belong, we better have the right stuff. So if a kid walks into school with the right cell phone, what happens? They get noticed. Most kids in poverty will tell you they don't get noticed if they're there or if they're not there. Being noticed, Maslow says, is part of belonging. We'll do anything to belong. How many of you have heard people get rich off welfare? It's a common belief because our number one teacher of poverty is not our universities, it is the media. I'm really proud I was recently selected as a Princeton Fellow. And so I'm going to be getting to do some work with our education systems. Rice University has adopted my work so that all administrators will get Foundational Poverty 101. We graduate people from college and leave media as our number one teacher. Who here says with me in agreement, media dramatize a lot? Sensationalize. So what's the average person going to know about poverty? You're going to know the stereotypes. In 1986, my welfare check was $408. Math teachers, please pay attention. My rent was $395. What did I have left? $13, plus they gave me $150 in food stamps. What did I have to do with the $13? Utilities, transportation, go to the laundromat, $1.50 to dry, at least that much to wash. Laundry soap, toilet paper, shampoo, all things you cannot buy on food stamps. Can you all agree with me we all need toilet paper? Today, a welfare check for one adult, 2 children in 2014 is $478. That's the national average. People don't know. People don't know. So it's easy to go, well, they like getting welfare. The average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $750. The average disability check is $650. People are making choices between rent and food. So if you see that big screen TV, rest easy, we don't get to keep it. It's going to get stolen, it's going to get repossessed, it's going to get taken away. If we get that cell phone, we're going to run out of minutes. If we get those Nike shoes, we'll outgrow them. But for a moment, we will belong. For a moment, we get to be like everyone else. And that's what our kids are wanting. They just want to be like everyone else. So when my marriage ended, my utilities got shut out, and I went to Community Action, which came out of Johnson's War on Poverty. I don't know, most people don't even know we had a war on poverty. The few who do will say it's a war we couldn't win, but in fact we were winning. When Johnson said we're going to fight the poverty, not the people, and developed education programs, training programs, focused on affordable housing, living wage jobs, Head Start came out of the war on poverty. We reduced poverty by 23%. Poverty rates began to climb again when we pulled all the resources out of the war on poverty and put it into the war in Vietnam. And we haven't, as a nation, addressed poverty since. So I walked into Community Action, and there they said, we think we can help you get your lights turned back on. And you might want to check out this new program. It's a pilot program starting up for single moms. And I went to that program not because I thought, oh, this is going to change my life. At that time, I was hopeless. I had no hope. Poverty steals hope. Poverty steals your confidence. I was just existing. I just got to find a place for my babies to lay their heads. And when I got to that pilot program, I learned something. Pilot programs have nearly a 100% success rate. Did you know that? I got a good idea. How about we make everything a pilot? Because pilot programs, Elizabeth Shore talks about in her book, Within Our Reach, they meet people where they are. And they do a connected, comprehensive approach to fighting poverty. You know, if you're in a pilot program and you don't show up, they come get you. So they take that NASA attitude. If educators try to do this alone, we won't change that statistic that our kids in poverty are not getting an education. I was so happy when in the introduction to hear United Way was here and all of the other partners, the business partners. In Oregon, we are taking poverty seriously. That's where I live now. We had a conference, our business leaders put on a conference, a whole day to learn about poverty. I was ecstatic. They made reducing poverty as one of their top 3 goals. Because poverty impacts us all. I get frustrated when I see media reports saying the educators are the cause of poverty. Educators can't do it alone. We need a community-connected effort. We need to be able to address the housing issues where our kids can actually have the stability and the luxury to learn. And in that pilot program, I got housing. And I remember what it was like to not have to worry for the first time in my life at age 26 about where I was going to lay my head. I am a fluke because when they institutionalized the program, there was no housing available for group 2. And they were like, you got housing? Your mom took care of your kids? And if you read my bio, you don't see my academic credentials first, you see self-confidence. Because until our kids get that, they can't believe they could actually learn. We have to start showing them what's right about them. I always tell teachers, if you mark everything that's right on their page, they still know where they have to work, and so do you. Because once they leave you and go into the war zone of poverty, they'll get enough messages that something's wrong with them. So I got to go through that pilot program, and in there they said, what would you do for a living if you could do anything? And I had a smart mouth. I said, I'll take Mary Hart's job from Entertainment Tonight. And I was so lucky because they came right back and they said, oh, Donna, you're interested in journalism. I didn't know what that word meant. I had never read a newspaper at 26. I didn't know the words in the newspaper. They took me out to the community college. Did you hear that? What do you think would happen if they said to 26-year-old me, go out to the community college, check out the journalism program? People like me don't do that. They went with me. That's what we have to do for our students. We have to wrap our arms around them and say, let's walk you through what this looks and feels like. Let me show you what a good assignment looks like. I always tell teachers, show the students what a good one looks like. Sometimes they'll say, we can't, that would be cheating. And I say, you think the middle-class parents aren't showing kids what a good one looks like? I love the study that came out on middle-class parents and homework. Over 92% of the parents reported they do their kids' homework for them or with them. So who are you grading? For many of our kids, the only learning that's going to happen is in your building. They took me into the financial aid office at the community college, and they introduced me to Diane. They said, this is Diane. She's been here 19 years helping people get money to go to school. She's a mom just like you. That's level 2 of self-disclosure, what you did. Establish some common ground, identification. You're not so different from me, because that's the definition of a role model. And she said, Donna, you're eligible for financial aid. And then they took me into the academic advising office, and the woman there said, Donna, if you study these kinds of things, these are the kinds of jobs you could get. And I'm looking at the title, and I'm looking at the pay, and I'm thinking, oh, I could really take care of my kids if I could get that. I wrote in my diary, I'm going to try to get that GED, and then I'll be somebody in 1986. I get to stand here today because people exactly like you stepped up, went out of their job description, because what we have to do to educate kids in the war zone of poverty may not be in your job description. People mentored me. People took the time to get to know me, to show me that I had some skills. When I ask you in the beginning, stand up if you know how this, I do an opportunity community model around the country. I'm in 12 states now with this model. And part of the model is a conference for youth and adults in poverty to remove the shame, rebuild the hope, and reduce the isolation by connecting them to people who have benefited from education, who can mentor and navigate resources and opportunities. That is how I got to stand here. When we impact our students and families in the crisis of poverty, we touch not only their lives, we touch the lives of their families, we touch the lives of their friends. This is my preemie you saw on the respirator. Her Head Start teacher took the time to get to know us. Her Head Start teacher taught not only her, but me. Taught me what questions to ask when she got to elementary school. I would have never known to ask about talented and gifted. I didn't even know you could ask teachers questions. And because of that, Jennifer got into talented and gifted. And in 8th grade, she scored perfect on a state reading test. Got her name in the paper, and that followed up with a private high school contacting us and saying they wanted to test her. She got into that private school and became fluent in French, and she would say to kids at this $20,000 a year school, "You paid what for that sweater? Do you know that'll pay someone's utilities for 3 months?" She became fluent in French. They sent her to France twice. She would say, "Mom, we have 7 kids in our science room. We have all this equipment. In my old school, we didn't have any equipment. We can't keep pretending that all kids start the same." These are my 2 boys, Daniel and Austin. Daniel's dad is Jerry, dropped out of 7th grade, can't read and write. When Daniel got into high school, he said to me, "Mom, I think I figured out what I want to do for a living." I said, "What, Daniel?" He said, "I want to do landscape architecture and design golf courses." And here's what I said to my son, "Is that a real job?" You don't know. You don't know. We don't even know the possibilities, but they are endless. And when you open those doors, when you give us knowledge, nobody can auction it, nobody can hawk it, nobody can take it away. I now have 2 brothers who have bachelor's degrees, including Wayne. I have multiple cousins who are entering graduate school. Education has a new meaning in my family now. In my doctoral research, when I asked students from generational poverty, what was the meaning of education, the number 1 answer was stress. And that was certainly true for my family. Most of my family members now say things like, "Donna did it? We can do that." Because they know I'm not perfect. I took algebra 4 times and I got a D every time. I didn't know what a D meant though, so I finally asked my professor, I said, "Is that passing?" And he said, "Yes, but you're gonna wanna come back and get those skills. You need to take algebra again." And I said, "No, I really don't." And I teach this to kids, you know? I'm still waiting for this phone call. "Dr. Beagle, we'd like to hire you, but first we're gonna need to know what you got in algebra." You don't have to be perfect. Don't strive for a D, but don't shut that door in a labor market that demands a skill or an education. We have to teach kids that. We have to teach them the language of education. I want to close with a poem. It's my one and only poem. I probably had about 16 years of people saying to me, "Do you have a book? Do you have a book?" I have a book, and I'm very proud of this book. People are doing book reads with it. It has 9 activities you can do to increase poverty competencies. It has story, it has best practice, it has facts to dispel the myths that prevent us from building those connections with our students and families. So I'd like to read with you in closing this poem. It's called Curious. I find myself more late with every crisis, more angry with every injustice, more greedy with every deprivation, more rude with every judgment, more disorganized with every eviction. I find myself more civil with every bite, more respectful with every kindness, more hopeful with every chance, more grateful with every opportunity, more ready to learn when I'm actually safe, more motivated when there's real hope. I find myself like the 49 million people living in the war zone of poverty, responding in very human ways to my environment. I thank you for choosing this field where every single day you have a chance. You have a chance to leave our kids in a better place, to leave them with confidence, to leave them with the knowledge that they're not stupid. They know a lot. And we start building from there and change this statistic that our kids in poverty fall through the cracks. Thank you so much for having me. It's my great honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work.
How many of your schools use the AVID techniques? Are you familiar with AVID? You do that? Had an opportunity to become acquainted with that when I was a superintendent and found it to be very important, especially for children who came to school without a great deal of structure for how to attend school, what it meant to take notes, how to study, how to stay organized, some of the kinds of issues that Donna mentioned this morning that are particularly relevant to students from generational poverty. They just don't often come to school with those skills. AVID is a very good and efficient way to teach them how to go to school properly, to tell them the things that, for many of us, that my parents and your parents said to us. They told us what to do. And in the absence of that, AVID is a program that reaches out to students in that way. Patrick Briggs is the Assistant State Director of AVID. Very passionate about what I just said. It's his life, it's his career. We asked him to come here today because of the many schools that do utilize the AVID resources. But for those but also for those who are not necessarily familiar with it and how that can be a strategy and a best practice for your students who come to school without those skills. Patrick serves on the dream team of AVID's African American Male Initiative. It's in its second year of working with predominantly African American high schools to decrease the achievement gap, closing that achievement gap. You and I have been working on it all through our careers. It's a job that never gets done. It's continuous. We believe that AVID is an opportunity for yet another way to continue to close that gap and to make sure that all children have that best opportunity to learn. So having said that, Patrick Briggs will share with us strategies to help improve the performance of all learners, and we are very pleased today to have with us Patrick Briggs from AVID. Patrick, take it away.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, good morning. How are y'all? Come on now. I'm from the Black Baptist Church. I need a little bit of call and response. How are y'all this morning? I am privileged and honored to be here. Know that this is not a presentation about AVID. I'm here to talk about all students. You want more information about AVID? If I could get someone to put my PowerPoint on the screen and just go ahead and leave it, because I'm going to move. There we go. So if you want more information about AVID, you can see my email address up there. I am privileged and honored to be the AVID Texas State Director, which means I support about 900 schools in the state of Texas that have the AVID College Readiness System. Follow me on Twitter. I am tweeting some great things about all students and making sure that every child has exactly what they need in order to be successful in our global society. So follow me on Twitter. I've already tweeted quite a bit about you all. Now you want to see it. So without further ado, are y'all ready? Can we go? Let's go! So our essential question, how can I ignite? And that's the theme of our morning together. How can I ignite the power of the classroom? And I got so excited when I saw that, because as a first-year teacher, which was many years ago, you see the teacher in the picture up there? Can you see him in that right corner? Okay, let's try this again. I am from the Black Baptist Church. I need a little call and response. You see the teacher in the picture up there? There we go! That teacher is happy. I see that teacher grinning. I see him excited about being there. And because I have about 30 minutes, I'm going to keep it real. Can I keep it real with you this morning? I'm just going to go there. I can remember when I was 21 years old, fresh out of college. I had my college degree from Prairie View A&M University. Ha! They were talking about them claws. Come on now, they had claws earlier, so we're gonna do us. Ready? Now I'm gonna know if they went to Prairie View if they come right in. Who you rooting for? They went to Prairie View. There we go. I was excited. And when we look at the teacher in the picture up there, fresh out of college, had my college degree from Prairie View A&M University. I had my teaching certificate from the state of Texas that expires at life. How many of you have a lifetime teaching certificate? Some of y'all didn't know those existed, did you? Yeah, my principal's certificate is life. You couldn't tell me anything. So on the first day, 21 years old, I looked like that teacher on the first day of school and the last day of school. But I'm going to keep it real. The 178 days in between, that wasn't me. How did I get there? How did I get from wanting to change the world, do what was right for kids, and by Thanksgiving, there were 2 or 3 of them I didn't like. I'm going to keep it real. And about 20 of them who hated me. How did I get there? Well, one of the things I know now, that I'm well into my 40s, and I know what you're thinking. He can't possibly be 40-something. Cocoa butter. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. What I know now is that I defaulted to my learning style. As a first-year teacher, I began to teach little bitty people who were exactly like me. And what I didn't realize is that not everybody was like me. Just to give you an example, I gave my kids notes, and they took the notes because I made them. And I can remember being a first-year teacher, excited. I'm going to give my first test as a first-year teacher. And I looked at a room full of children, and I said, okay, put those notes away. Your first test in my class will be Thursday. Study. Oh, that's loaded. Put those notes away, assume they had some organized binder system. And they were going to open up those 3 little rings, and they were going to put those science notes in the science section. And I knew they were going to do that because they were 12. You see, they should know that by now. Put those notes away, test Thursday. Well, that means they were going to open up their little calendars and their planners. And they were going to write in them. They were going to write test Thursday in Mr. Briggs's class. And then they were going to backwards map. Wednesday, have my mommy quiz me over the notes for the test Thursday. Tuesday, have my study buddy get together with me, and we're going to go over these notes for an hour. And I knew they were going to do that because they were 12. You see, they should know that by now. Put those notes away, test Thursday, study, assume they knew how. And I told my students, all of you will make a 100 on this first test. And they all looked at me and said, Mr. Briggs, you're going to give us 100 on this test? I said, oh, I never said that. What I said was you're all going to make a 100 because I made the test straight from the nose. You got to be crazy not to make a 100. I didn't leave anything to chance. Handwritten test, my first one. That's in the notes, number 1 on the test. Woo, that's in the notes, number 2 on the test. Woo, that's in the notes, number 3. 20 handwritten questions straight from the notes. You got to be crazy not to get a 100. Thursday came, my first test as a first-year teacher, and I looked at my room full of kids and I said, okay, class, I went to college to be a teacher, and now I'm going to give my first test. And remember, all of you are going to make a 100. Half the kids looked at me and said, Mr. Briggs, we got a test today. I said, people, we went over this. Not only do we have a test today, but all of you were going to make a 100 because I made the test from the notes. I took a stack full of tests home that Thursday night and I graded them. Guess how many 100s I had? 0! I even had kids fail that first test. So I went into my classroom that Friday, looked at a room full of children, and I said this. I looked at a room full of children and I said, what is wrong with y'all? I'm a good teacher. College degree, lifetime teaching certificate. They don't just pass these out. You 12-year-old people are the problem. And just to prove it to them, I had them take out the test and take out the notes. I said, okay, do you see anything in that test that didn't come straight from the notes? If you find something in the test that didn't come straight from the notes, I'm going to give all of you $1,000. I was a first-year teacher. I didn't have $1,000. But I knew I didn't need it because I made the test straight from the notes. 20 minutes later, a room full of children looked at me and said, Mr. Briggs, everything in your test came straight from your nose. So again, I looked at a room full of children and said, so what's wrong with y'all? What I know now is what I was teaching children to do was how to copy. Shame on me. That's the course I was teaching. How do you copy from an overhead projector 101? That's the course I was teaching. Okay, you young teachers, an overhead projector is this thing we used to have, and it was like that's a whole nother workshop. Yes, I was using science phrases and words to do it, but I was teaching children how to copy. And then I was mad at them when they couldn't perform on a science assessment. You see, there was zero alignment there. The state of Texas and our district tells us what we're supposed to teach kids, our curriculum. State of Texas and our district tells us how to assess kids, the assessment. The curriculum and assessment are aligned. That's why we as teachers, we're the most powerful people on this planet because we control a variable. Between curriculum and assessment is a variable called instruction. And what we choose to do with our variable called instruction for 180 days actually controls the trajectory of the rest of a kid's life. And I didn't know that at 21. Look at me, teaching children how do you copy, and then testing them in science, and then being mad at them. Now I'm stepping on my own toes here. I know y'all don't do this, but I used to lecture the kids for 50 minutes and send them to the next period. Dr. Phil asked my favorite question, how's that working for you? And it wasn't. But y'all know me, I knew it all at 21, so I went to the teacher's lounge and let them know how good I was. Half the kids failed my class. I must be good, I must be rigorous. I must have high expectations. Half the kids fail in my class. What I know now is if half the kids fail your class, you didn't teach. period. Yeah, I got up and performed. I was delivering packages of information to children. Here's a package on photosynthesis. Good luck with that test Thursday study. Here's a package on cellular respiration. Good luck with that test Thursday study. And then I'm mad at them when they couldn't perform on a science assessment. Another thing I learned was that relationships matter, and I'm so glad I heard Dr. Beagle talk about that. Relationships. Because, see, as a first-year teacher, I had some wisdom come from a teacher who had been teaching for 35 years. That teacher stopped by my classroom when I was a first-year teacher setting up my room. You know, I had music going and candles burning. Excited. And this veteran came by my classroom, and she looked at me and said, She said, let me tell you something, baby. I've been teaching for 35 years. And I said, oh my gosh, yes ma'am, tell me something. The wisdom of 35 years is about to come out of this woman's mouth. I am fixed on it. And I said, yes ma'am. What do you have to share with me? And she said, 35 years of wisdom, Patrick, here it is. She said, Patrick, don't smile before Christmas. And I believed her. And that's why about Thanksgiving, there were 2 or 3 of them I didn't like. No kid cares how much you know until they know how much you care. No kid. Relationships. Because what I realize now is all of us in this room, you've taught a child who would do anything in the world for you. One of your best kids never causes any trouble, turns in his work. And that same kid leaves your classroom and goes to third period and acts like a fool. Let's keep it real. Does that child change in a 5-minute passing period? No. What changes is the relationship between that kid and the significant adult in the other room. I can remember going to in-school suspension and looking at my baby saying, what are you doing in here? You never cause any trouble. You're one of my favorite kids. You got a solid A in my classroom. You're always participating. How could you possibly have ended up in school suspension? And the kid looks up at me and say, Mr. Briggs, I can't stand her. She racist, huh? Like, wow, where did that come from? And what I realized real early as a teacher, I wasn't any more special than the other teacher, and I know she wasn't racist. The difference was that I bothered to build a relationship with that child. Relational capacity. What can I get you to do to, with, and for me solely based on our relationship? And I didn't understand at that point relationships matter. If we can go back to the PowerPoint. I don't care what study you look at. You can, if you want to decrease student dropout, increase students' understanding and meaningfulness of what you're teaching, single biggest factor is what is the relationship like. If I want to increase our students' failing, if I want to, and what I'm saying here is it's not important that you read this, it's about the research behind it, because I don't quote anything without showing you where it came from, or English teachers from where it came. Reducing absenteeism, decreasing dropout. If I want to increase the academic test scores, single biggest factor is what is the relationship. All of us have seen kids that would perform and have solid passing grades and then fail in everything else. A kid's intelligence doesn't change between third and fifth period. What changes is the relational capacity. What can I get you to do to, with, and for me solely based on our relationship? Because I had to learn this the hard way. Not one rule you put in place, Patrick, is going to cause good behavior or make good choices or good grades in May. None of that, because I had all kind of rules and regulations. Every strong relationship you make will. My mission. Why do I get out of bed every day? And I've looked at all of your missions, and I looked at the mission of Region 12, and I'm seeing some great things because I love it. You can see my favorite word is in bold and red there. All. I see that word all over missions, the word all. As my pastor say, that means 99.5 won't do. All students. That's my mission, to close what we call the achievement gap by preparing all students. Now, I hate that term, achievement gap, because that's a label that this country slaps on people that look and come from where I came from. I can't stand it. I can give you 50 reasons why I should be a part of the achievement gap, none of which I'll go into right now. Why am I not a part of the achievement gap? I want it. It's promised to me. What I know now, there's no such thing as the achievement gap. In this country, we have opportunity gaps. Who has the opportunity to learn at high levels? Let me just give you an example and step on my own toes. Had you come to my school back in the 90s before I brought in Avid, you would have gone to AP Chemistry, and you would have looked in there and said, woo, based on that one class, Patrick, I didn't know your school was 100% white and Asian kids. It wasn't. But my system was allowing that. Because had you gone into in-school suspension, and that's all I let you see, you'd have thought I was running a charter school for boys of color. I wasn't. But shame on me, my system was allowing that. And what I realized over those 20 plus years of being an educator, culture, my definition of culture of a building, culture of a school, culture of a campus, culture is what do you collectively allow? And we were allowing certain kids to have the opportunity to be college ready and certain kids not. Not y'all, I'm talking about me. Because when I got to Prairie View, because I had great teachers like you, the professor said, write this paper. I said, please. I did that back in high school because great teachers like you gave me the opportunity to write those types of papers. There were kids in that class with me at Prairie View, in that English professor's class, who raised their hand and said, Professor, where are the worksheets? You see, that's how I got through high school. I can hunt and find. I can fill in the blank. I'm a teacher pleaser, but what you're asking me to do, Professor, nobody ever gave me that opportunity. And they started dropping like flies. Much smarter than I will ever be, great teachers like you made sure I had the opportunity to be college ready. I said we have gaps in this country, and I don't believe in achievement gaps. We have an opportunity gap. And the other gap that we have in this country is the expectation gap. Who do we expect to go on to colleges? I love what Dr. Beagle said. Certain teachers that had her didn't expect her to go on to college. But Dr. Beagle's here proof that the devil's a lie. Come on, sister. Don't tell me what I can and cannot do with my future, but it's great teachers who make the difference. There are no learning gaps in our children. Those opportunity gaps, let's close those. And we'll see what we euphemistically call the achievement gap close as well. And my theme for this morning is, does all mean all? Does every mean every? I'm going to move forward here. We talk about college readiness. David Connolly's my go-to guru on college readiness. Basically, can our kids go to college if they choose to without the need for remediation? Did you know half our kids in Texas go to college and take a developmental course? Developmental reading, developmental math. Do they have to pay for those courses? What? Well, if they have to pay for them, then they surely count towards the biology degree they want, right? So half our kids go to college paying for classes that will never count. 91% of those who sit in developmental reading will quit that semester. Because there's only 6 things our babies can do after high school. Only 6. Everybody in the world does one of these 6. You can go on to a 2 or 4 year technical school, get a certificate. You can go on to school. That's choice number 1. Because I had great teachers like you, that was an opportunity. There's the gap. There was the opportunity. Because when I look at my family members who are locked up today, they're smarter than I will ever be. They didn't have that opportunity. Can you go on to a 2 or 4 year college if you don't finish high school or get a GED? Can you do that? No. But there are 5 options left. Number 2, you can go to the military. Great choice. Can you get into the military without finishing high school? Can you get in the military with a GED? No. But there are 4 choices left. Number 3, you can go to work. Now you're going to be making millions of dollars straight out of high school going to work. You're going to be making that legally. Because that leads to other choices. And so what we have is a system that starts to set it up. And I love what Dr. Beagle said. You know, the current statistic is like 1 in, how many are in prison right now? 32. But when we break it down by race and by gender, the current statistic for me as a black man is 1 in 15. I don't disproportionately commit crime, but that's another workshop. And for our young black brothers, especially our young boys of color, it is 1 in 9. 1 in 9. Number 4, you can be unemployed. You can sit at home with mama and them. Not in my house, but I heard it can be done. Number 5, incarceration. Number 6 is death. And I have lots of family members who are in the latter 2 solely because they didn't have the opportunity for 1 and 2. We have to close the opportunity gaps. How do I do that? I want to raise the rigor of every class, and I want to make sure that every child is engaged in my classroom. Does all mean all. Equity and excellence. Look at that picture up there. That's a picture of equality. There are 3 brothers in that picture, and their goal is to see the game. Brother number 1 on the left, I gave him a box to stand on. Say, I want to treat everybody equally. Let's see how it works out for us. Brother number 1 got a box to stand on. Yay, he can see the game. Brother number 2 has a box to stand on. Yay, he can see the game. Now, the game is a metaphor. Could be being successful in life, going to college. Look at brother number 3. I knew when I gave him that box, he was going to be looking at the fence. I knew that. Ooh, but I want to be fair. I want to treat everybody equally. Fair and equal are 2 different things. They have never been equated. Think about it. We would never take a brother in a wheelchair and say, oh, well, we treat everybody the same at this school. You're going to get up them stairs. We never do that. We would never have a sister. We would never have a sister who's diabetic. Say, well, we make insulin here. You better talk to your pancreas because we ain't going to be doing all this stuff for you. We would never do that. Education is the only profession where when we treat people equally, we start to play with the trajectory of the rest of their lives. Think about it. No doctor would say, okay, you got cancer, you got Ebola, you got a little scratch on your arm. Well, to be fair, I'm going to give them all a Band-Aid. It doesn't happen anywhere else. But going back up there, we see if we treat everybody equally and no 2 kids come to us from the same place, if we treat everybody equally, we're going to have a level of failure. My goal and my research is on this picture, equity. We're going to give everybody what they need to be successful. The goal is to see the game. You and I are not going to see the game in the same way at the same time, but we're going to see the game when we have equitable teachers. Brother number one doesn't get a box. He can see the game, and I'm not going to apologize to him. I'm going to give him what he needs to be successful, and that's where relationships come in. Because as a teacher, I explain this to my classroom. And we do the Band-Aid episode, and we all walk down to the elevator, and I say, okay, what's the best way for us to get to the top of the stairs? And the kids will look at me and say, we're going to walk up the stairs. And I say, well, wait a minute, we got a brother here in a wheelchair. What's the best way for him to get up the stairs? And they say, oh, well, he should take the elevator. And I say, oh, so we should treat him differently. And the kids understand, but the goal, Mr. Briggs, is for us all to get to the second floor. What's the big deal? And I say, exactly, let's go. And I'm going to use equity in my classroom. So when we look at the next picture, comparing equality and equity, equality means there will always be failures. We have thousands of kids about to show up here next week. None of them are coming to us from the same place. Our goal is to get them to the same place, and we can only do that with equity work. Equity, I want to raise the achievement of every kid we have, but I want to narrow the gaps. Notice I didn't say achievement gaps. I want to eliminate predictability. Let me ask you this. We haven't started school. Can we predict which group in terms of race and gender is going to do the worst on the STAR EOC this year? Do we know that now? Oh, we got quiet. Okay. If we can predict that and we do nothing but allow it to happen, we have some equity work to do. Because equity is eliminating predictability. Y'all cutting my time, stop. High predictability of success. I'll let y'all clap at the end. Let's go. Equity is not equal. It is moving kids from different places to common places. You have thousands of kids about to show up. We're trying to get them all to the same place. Not here in Region 12, but where I was in Region 4, they got to pass STAR, Patrick. That was the goal. How can I get 1,600 kids in my school to the same exact place? I have to do equity work because equity is not equal. Let's pretend, as I close, Ushers come forward. Some of y'all caught it. Let's move on. Let's pretend I'm on a desert island. It doesn't matter how I got to this desert island, I'm here. Don't worry about how I got here. Let's move on. With me on this desert island are two other people. A little 2-year-old boy. Y'all see this 2-year-old boy here? Oh, if y'all see him, we got a lot of problems. But I'm glad you're with me. So with me on this desert island, a little 2-year-old boy and a 100-year-old woman. The three of us have been dropped off on this island, and we have been told, survive for 10 days, and a ship will be back to get you. So 100-year-old woman, 40-something-year-old man, 2-year-old boy. 3 of us have been dropped off and been told, survive for 10 days, and a ship will be back to get you. And what they gonna do, they gonna treat us equally. Little boy, here's a bottle of water, survive. Patrick, here's a bottle of water, survive. 100-year-old woman, here's a bottle of water, survive. The 3 of us have been treated equally, but we are coming from 3 different places. Day 1, little boy drinks all of his water, and then he starts running around the island chasing the crabs around. Me and her, see, thank you, Dr. Beagle, you can hear me code switching too. The language I'm speaking right now is not my first language. That's a whole nother workshop. I know what sister was talking about. Code switching. So the 3 of us are on this island. Little boy drinks all of his water day 1, runs around the island chasing the crabs. She and I, we don't move. We sit under a shady tree and we don't even think about opening our water. We understand rationing, we cool. At the end of day one, she and I look at each other and we make a prediction. We look at each other and say one thing: he ain't gonna make it. And we know this with 9 days to go. Day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. Day 7, he's been out of water for 6 whole days. Me, I'm down about half. She's now out of water. At the end of day 7, she and I look at each other and say one thing: he ain't gonna make it. To myself, I look at her and say, sister, neither are you. And I know this with 3 days to go. Day 7, day 8, day 9, day 10. Day 10, the ship is here. The ship is here. The ship is here. The ship is here for me and 2 people that didn't make it because we were treated equally. And so I get on that ship, and the captain says, well, Patrick, where's the little boy? And I say, well, he was 2. He drank all of his water on day 1. He wouldn't listen. He wouldn't pull his pants up. He wouldn't take his hat off. He doesn't bring a pencil to class. He won't bring his binder. He won't do his homework. Notice the pronoun, he. All the reasons I allowed that 2-year-old to die. And I predicted it on day 1. And so I went home and got on that ship and slept at night, knowing, well, we'd been treated equally. What happened to the older woman? Well, she was 100. She didn't ration her water. She had all kind of problems. All the reasons why I allowed her to be unsuccessful. And me, college-educated educator, I just let it happen because, that 2-year-old runs the world. Not on my watch. Equity. Equity Island is saying, what does everybody need to be successful? Equity Island, day 1, is saying, okay, little boy, I need you to do anything in the world for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is build relational capacity. I'm going to build a relationship. What's your name? Oh, my uncle's name is that. It's good to meet you. You know what? I see you thinking about drinking your water. Let me teach you about rationing. Teaching is the only thing that changes behavior. Punishment doesn't do it. See, on Equal Island, I punished them by letting them die. Think about it. Y'all ever had kids go to in-school suspension and come out fixed? You had kids go to in-school suspension and say, ooh, I found Jesus in there. I'll never do it again. Because it's a punishment. It's a punishment. It is not designed to change behavior. Prison is a punishment. Half the people in prison will be back 3 years after getting out. 80% of them will be back. It's a punishment. It is not designed to change behavior. It's the reason why if you don't build a relationship with kids and you write them up and send them to the office as an assistant principal, I can't fix him. If the problem is the relationship between you and the kid, I can't fix that. I can punish it. I can send him to in-school suspension for 3 days, but he's coming back. What you gonna do? You gonna write him up again. Let me digress. Let me go back to the island. Equity Island. Build a relationship with the little boy. So he'll do anything in the world for me. I need to make sure he understands. If I say don't drink the water, he knows and believes I have his best interests at heart. He believes I care. He doesn't care what I know until he knows that I care. I'm going to check on the sister over here. I'm going to help him understand rationing. I'm going to make sure he sits with me at night. When it gets cool, we're going to sing songs together by the campfire. We're going to kumbaya. We're going to do all kind of stuff. And we're going to ration water and we're going to share water. If I had done all of that, all 3 of us would have walked on that ship. If that's the goal. So my new mantra is, does all mean all? And if not, What is your acceptable level of casualties? Thank you, sister. What is that, 3? I'm going to take 10. No. You know, my pastor say obedience. All right, some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Let's move on. So when students, who are our ultimate consumers, when we ask them what is their biggest influence on academic achievement, they're unequivocal. A caring teacher who accepts no excuses and refuses to let me fail. That's not me in the picture. But it could have been. It's not important that y'all know I'm preaching to the choir here. You don't got to be black to teach a black kid. And I know in Region 12, most of our students are students of color, which would be the true now for the United States. This is the first year where white students will not be a majority of anywhere, no state. But you and I have been there. No kid cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So looking back at that picture, all the children have to say is, my teachers respect me for who I am, where I come from, and where I'm going. You don't have to be black to teach a black kid. You don't have to be Latino to teach a Latino kid. You don't have to be white to teach a white kid. Y'all know that. But you see that child in the picture up there. Our nation, 80% of teachers are white women in this country. So on behalf of all students, you see this very well-educated, several degree holding black professional. That was me, kindergarten through 8th grade. I didn't have my first male or teacher of color until I hit high school. So, thank you, white women. Thank you. Because you chose to educate me. And you closed my opportunity gaps and my achievement gaps. And I'd like to thank black women for giving birth to me and raising me. And I'd like to thank all women for putting up with us. But if we do this job right, you go from this child who's just getting out of elementary school to this young man who just finished college. That's the same child. Solely because he was able to say, my teachers respect me for who I am, where I come from, and where I'm going. So our essential question as we think about for the rest of the day, how are you going to ignite the power of the classroom? I got so much more to say. Follow me on Twitter. I'm going to tweet about you all. I have the privilege and honor of meeting with some administrators after this. So let me just stop here and say thank you so much for what you're choosing to do for children. Thank you so much for choosing our profession, and thank you so much for what you are going to do for all children this school year. Thank you. I'm stopping. No, sit down. Sit down. We got to go. Sit down. We got to go. Come on. Come on forward. Come on. Come on. Talk to him. Talk to him. You're awesome, man.
Thank you, Patrick Briggs, for being an awesome champion for children. Thank you to each of you for choosing to be here today and be a part of this. Thank you for choosing education and choosing to love children like your own every day, and for making such a difference in their lives. As we begin to prepare to make our exit, Dr. Beagle will be out there at section 123. She has a book she'll sign for you. I want to thank a few folks, though. Thank you, Waco ISD, for helping us record this event today. Their AV folks are here. Thank you. And you know, I love to use this analogy, this picture of a duck sliding gracefully and smoothly across the surface of the water. And when you see an event work like this today, I want to thank the Region 12 staff for making that look so smooth on the surface, because it takes a lot of churning underneath. Region 12, stand up, please. Where's our staff? Over here. Thank y'all very much. Thank you for choosing Region 12. Thank you for choosing to do that terrific work as teachers. Go do that magic that you do, and let's have a great, great school year. Thank you all very much. Good day.